When it comes to difficulty in video games, I am of the belief that for the most part, it's all rather subjective. FromSoft games, for example, are often touted as some of the hardest games in the modern day, and while the large majority struggled with them, I found them rather easy. That said, there are a few franchises that most deem laughably easy. Spyro, for example, despite sitting at the top of the nostalgia totem pole, isn't exactly a tough. As I was saying, I wouldn't exactly consider Spyro games to be that hard. Oh god. Oh fuck off. Oh sick. I'm so shit. If you're one of my usual victims, then you know the drill. I've recorded and noted down each time I died while playing through each of these games, with the one with the highest death count being crowned as the hardest reignited Spyro game to 100%. Our adventures start on the set of a documentary, where the lead actor, having fallen asleep watching one of my videos, could barely deliver his opening line. As what may go down as one of the worst documentaries in history continued on, we learn of Nasty Nork, and while he may look intimidating, it didn't stop Unkir toasting him into oblivion.
Besides, he is ugly. Ugly?
Thankfully, we're made aware of the fact that he'd been banished and therefore posed no threat.
2 seconds later.
So that was a fucking lie.
With the washed up actors out of the way, we took this strange turn of events as an opportunity to star as the main actor as we look to free all of our dragon friends and put an end to Nasty Nork's reign once and for all. Our first steps are within the Artisans homeworld, which acts as the first hub world of the game. Before going further, however, I think it's best we discuss what's required for 100% in this game. As you'd expect, our first port of call is freeing all 80 dragons from their jade statue forms. Alongside this, we'll need to steal back all 12 dragon eggs, as well as collect a whopping 12,000 gems in total. The Artisan homeworld acts as the game's tutorial, with a large majority of dragons giving tips about the game's mechanics once freed.
His name is Sparks, and he's helping and protecting you.
Little did they know that we had no need for such basic tips. Oh, he's like a health bar, is he? To start things off, we spent a good few minutes just exploring the surrounding areas, noting down the entrances to multiple levels along the way. Each homeworld and level has numerous dragons to free, as well as a certain number of gems to collect, so it's important that we keep an eye out for little hidden secrets, as we'll need to collect it all to earn that illustrious 100%. Having ruptured our Achilles heels from running too much, I thought it best that we venture forth into our first level. So, is everyone having a good day, or why the fuck are we still flying? Having barely survived the world's longest loading screen, we land in what I'm sure many would consider to be the easiest stage in the entire game. Not only is the level incredibly linear, with the majority of the gems placed out in plain sight, but the enemies also die in a single hit, meaning should you get hit by them, there's no doubt you're one of the worst gamers to ever play this series.
It's been a weird.
Having spent the next 30 minutes coming to terms with the realization that I was dogshit, we looked to clear out our mind as we chased down the seedy fucker who was trying to steal one of our youngborn dragon eggs. I then spent an ungodly amount of time trying to find this hidden shoreline which housed our first key. Using it, we're able to open the locked chest down at the bottom of this well, thus earning us our first 100% for a level. With our confidence at an all-time high, we made our way into Dark Hollow, where the enemies finally thought it'd be a good idea to stock up on some armor and weapons. Unfortunately, it seems as though they'd bought these items off Facebook Marketplace with how useless they were, as we could simply bulldozer our way through them. Some of the bigger enemies proved a bit more challenging, as we needed to wait for their assholes to be exposed before torching their rectums, while others just straight up hated our guts. Now, despite these rather brutal beatdowns, the worst was yet to come. See, when it comes to finding a bunch of collectibles, the worst thing that could happen would be missing one and having no idea where it is. Thankfully, we hadn't experienced that just yet. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. The good news is that the levels at this stage aren't the biggest, so it didn't take too long to find this last gem. From here, we travelled down to Town Square, where we somehow outcharged literal bulls. To call this level easy would be an understatement, and honestly, it was starting to feel like nothing in this game could challenge us, a phrase I'd soon come to regret. This here is Sunny Flight, the first speedway in the entire game. These stages work a bit differently than your typical free roam platformer stage. See, the goal here is to fly around and hit all 4 sets of objects. These can be gates, the local public transport, or even innocent civilians participating in their very first flying lesson. On their own, these objectives aren't too bad to complete. However, to earn 100% on these levels, we need to hit every single one before time runs out, which is far easier said than done, as the ideal route isn't exactly obvious. Pair this with the fact that Spyro's allergic to water, and you've got one of the most annoying levels so far. The pain didn't stop there either, as we'd somehow found ourselves confronting Toasty, the first boss of the game. As fate would have it though, it wasn't Toasty that had me considering throwing my nutsack into a hydraulic press. It was the goddamn leaping dogs that littered the level. Not only do these motherfuckers take 2 hits from our 5 breaths to take down, their leaps essentially cross an entire continent before tracking exactly where you're running. At certain points, it felt like no matter where I ran, I'd be getting absolutely bodied by these soaring assholes. Toasty in comparison was a complete joke. Without his army of brain-dead mups, he was about as threatening as a tadpole holding a toothpick. Having vanquished the least threatening boss since Bowser, we catch a ride with Marco in a balloon that's guaranteed to give every single passenger a perpetual headache. Eventually, we're able to disembark at a world known as the Peacekeepers, a name that couldn't be further from the truth as we're immediately bombarded by cannons upon our arrival. With that said, we hadn't brushed our teeth in weeks, with the ghastly smell protruding from our mouth being so rancid that our enemies literally couldn't help but run away from us. With the pathway well and truly cleared, we made our way into Dry Canyon, where I executed one of the most brain-dead plays imaginable.
Oh, look at the class, look at the move!
Alongside gun-wielding orcs, we also had to deal with these dumbass birds that seemed to be more interested flying into walls than attacking us. Despite all these threats though, the biggest one still happened to be the autistic player behind the screen. With another pathetic display added to my portfolio, I looked to switch things up, which meant we had to make our way on over to the ice cavern. Now usually, I'd be shitting myself at the sight of an ice-based level, but instead, I was utterly entranced by this sexy powerlifter. In terms of the slippery physics, miraculously, they're there to help us, as it changes our charge attack into a battering ram. The rest of the level is fairly tame, which was honestly surprising as I'm usually getting my ass handed to me during these ice stages. Now, if you thought things couldn't get any easier, you'd be wrong, as the enemies in Dr. Shrimp would rather end themselves than deal with our godly powers. I'm not kidding when I say I hardly lifted a finger in this entire stage as I watched these absolute idiots run themselves into their own demise over and over again. Shrimp himself is a particularly tough fight, but not for the reasons you'd expect. See, his attacks are rather simple to avoid, and while we do have to time our attacks well, the toughest part of the fight is paying attention to anything other than this guy's juicy cheeks.
Damn, boy, he's thick, boy!
Sus comments aside, with this asshole flame grilled to perfection, we make our way back out into the Sahara Desert before taking on the second Speedway stage. Now you'd think I'd gotten better at these considering I got dusted countless times on our first rodeo, but 10 seconds in and... yeah, I was still complete dogshit at these stages. For whatever reason, anytime I was remotely close to water, I just had the urge to dive bomb straight into it. Either way, we didn't suffer here for too long as we managed to grab all the objectives on our 3rd attempt. Now, by this point, you'd think we'd learned all there was to know about Spyro's mechanics and how to platform our way around the world. The developers, however, still thought of us as mentally handicapped, as the dragons were still giving us the exact same tips we were getting at the start of the game.
Remember, Spyro, flame won't work on metal, but charging with your horns, that should do the trick.
Their metal armor is fireproof, but a charge attack will take care of them.
No shit.
Half the challenge in these latter stages is working out how to reach specific platforms, with some of them being extremely well hidden. Either way, having 100%ed Clifftown here, we'd managed to restore peace to the Peacekeepers' world as we once again risked a brain aneurysm by getting into this moron's balloon. Unfortunately, our head couldn't handle the constant spinning, and following the constant buildup of our vomit inside the balloon's basket, Marco had no choice but to let us down in the Magic Crafters world. Unlike the Peacekeepers world, Magic Crafters does in fact live up to its name, as there's nothing more magical than pools of water that are disguised as sheets of ice. After introducing ourselves to the local wizards by wiping out half their population, we made our way into the Alpine Ridge, a level so infuriating that it single-handedly confirmed in my mind that I was complete dogshit at this gliding mechanic.
You're a donut! You're so stupid!
Jumping between these thin-ass pillars was hard enough, but the real challenge is lighting up these fireworks and then quickly jumping to the next pillar before this happens. I don't even want to know how many times I stupidly sprint jumped to my death here, but for your sanity, just know that I did finally figure out that all I needed to do was simply glide to each platform. The idea that I had an IQ over 40 continued to be questioned in high caves, as I got packed in by a spider that was quite evidently built different. Having been shown our place in the animal kingdom, we spent the next 10 minutes contemplating whether or not we had it in us to become a star on the big screen. And I'm going to be honest, things weren't looking too good. If there was one thing I'd taken from biology classes though, it was the fact that a single kiss from a fairy was enough to supercharge our blood, turning it into a lethal weapon that we could use to eviscerate highly armored spiders. It would also seem that our kissing technique was top notch, as any time we looked in danger of falling to our death, we'd be rescued by our entourage of fairies. To everyone's surprise, I'm sure, we managed to get through the next Speedway mission on our third attempt, although it was very dicey for the most part. Blowhard in a similar sense was incredibly straightforward, and most definitely the easiest boss so far. The level essentially has you platforming across moving platforms that are controlled by these Hogwarts dropouts. I didn't even clock that this tornado looking loser was the boss because he did fuck all the entire stage. I mean, he literally just hovers there waiting for you to torch his ass. With our confidence at an all-time high, we ventured forth into the Wizard's Peak, where we came across wizards wielding our one true weakness. Getting embarrassed like this was the least of our worries, as the ice from these attacks seemed to linger on our bodies for quite some time, nerving our jump and gliding ability for the foreseeable future. All joking aside, this platform here not only contained the rest of the gems for this level, but the last dragon egg that had been stolen by these hooded freaks. With Gen Beta rescued and in good hands, we could finally make our way for the Beastmaker's world. Now, upon learning of his army's obliteration at our hands, Nasty Nork wasn't about to let things continue the way they had been. Nothing proved that more than the equipment given to the enemies in this world. They're also far more aggressive with their attacks, meaning we needed to be more switched on than ever if we're going to make it through this electrifying level. Timing had become one of our most crucial attributes, as our enemies were paired up in such a way that we'd need to wait out the electrifying attack before quickly getting in there to dispatch multiple enemies in a short time frame. It had become rather evident by the end of this level that our brain capacity was far too small to adjust for this timing while also leaving space for proper gliding techniques. This loss of knowledge couldn't have come at a worse time either, as our next stop saw us atop some rather sketchy treetops. Ignoring the fact that we're wiping out all of DK's long lost brethren, this level may go down as one of the most infuriating stages in the entire trilogy. Despite this dragon alluding to the fact that we need to chain together multiple supercharges, executing said plan was far harder than I initially thought. The idea here is to supercharge our way across the entire stage to generate enough speed to make this massive jump towards this isolated rock face over here. The only problem is Spyro's legs barely have a high enough handling stat to make some of these goddamn 90-degree turns. If that wasn't bad enough, hitting almost anything will instantly stop us in our tracks. It doesn't matter if it's a wall or a thin-ass torch, there always seems to be some cancerous obstacle waiting for us around the corner. Pair this with some extremely tight jumps, and it's no wonder why I was considering jumping myself. This level was so AIDS that it made the rest of the levels in the Beastmaker's world seem like complete child's play. Wild Flight, to my surprise, was the least fatal Speedway stage yet, and Metalhead might as well have been called Empty Head, as he essentially devised and executed his own defeat. The only other difficult stage in this entire world came in the form of Mystic Bog. Now, ignoring the fact that there's quite literally fuck all mist, the challenge in question makes itself known at the end of this particular hallway. See, the majority of this level is polluted by two enemy types. You have the armored orcs who can only be defeated by charging through them, as well as these blue toads who do just about anything to give us a rim job with their rainbow coloured tongues. On their own, they aren't particularly tough to take down. When paired together, however... just leave my butthole alone, you fucking toad. This particular setup is honestly sadistic when you consider the spacing between the orcs and the toads. It's almost impossible to get a clean charge attack through this lineup of orcs without multiple toads getting their tongues deep into your butthole. Clearing this area may look easy, but I swear my heart rate when doing so far eclipsed the beats it was doing during far tougher games. Life-threatening sections aside, 100%ing this level meant we'd collected everything offered in the Beastmaker's world. This could only mean one thing. It was once again time to board the shittiest airlines known to man. Along the way, we stopped over at the Dreamweaver's world, and much to my surprise, everyone here appeared to be very welcoming, which is a statement that cannot be shared with the Speedway of this world. If I had to choose one Speedway stage to be the toughest, it would without a doubt be Icy Flight. At first, it seems rather simple as a lot of the objects are tightly packed into a smallish space. The caveat to this, however, is the fact that it's incredibly easy to miss the smaller objects because of how tight some of the movements you have to make are. Not only that, but the layout of certain enemies in particular can cause quite a few problems as they're positioned not only close to the water but other obstacles. If I had $1 for every instance where I'd barely tap the side of an obstacle and fall into the water, I'd have around $5, which might not sound like much, but it does confirm one thing. I was getting my ass handed to me here. In comparison, the next two levels were extremely easy. Lofty Castle was full of idiots who thought it was a good idea to float off the side of the map using balloons rather than just stand on solid ground, whereas Haunted Towers once again brought back the multi-chain superchargers, which I had already mastered by this point.
That's not entirely accurate.
Now, in all seriousness, Haunted Towers did have some rather difficult sections, as the developers had managed to sneak in time-gated sections without them being super obvious. Even so, the toughest level out of the whole bunch was the boss stage where we confronted Jacques. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that the only thing we were confronting here were my dogshit skills. I don't know what it was about these lava-y depths, but the mere sight of them seemed to draw me in more ways than one. If it wasn't my brain-dead ass doing it, I was getting pounded by orcs wearing goddamn baking aprons. To say my ego had been slaughtered would be putting it lightly. Thankfully, Jacques himself is a literal clown, and his pathetic attacks make sure you know that. It might not seem it, but we'd conquered every world but one. And given the fact that we'd been 100%ing every level up to this point, you could tell Nasty Nork was shitting himself as we flew our way on over. Now, in terms of a final world, I must say that Nasty Nork disappointed me here. Not only are there only a few levels to complete, but they're not even that hard. I mean, we're literally using our enemies' own weapons to decimate them. It quite literally cannot get any worse for them. In fact, the only time I did die was when I jumped straight into a TNT barrel. Even so, after eviscerating the last remnants of Nork's elite guard, there remained but one poor sod left to obliterate. Now, despite being the final boss and the main antagonist of the entire game, what became clear upon confronting Nork was the fact that he was a complete pussy. He spends the whole stage just running away from us without putting up so much as a finger to fight us off. He may be one of the most underwhelming final bosses we've ever faced on this channel, and that's saying a lot when we've beaten bosses like Mirai from Ninja Gaiden.
What did he say?
If that wasn't surprising enough, defeating Nork instantly sends us into the final cutscene, where we bask in the spotlight while making sure to ruin any up-and-coming actor's chances at stardom. Despite beating the final boss and completing the game, the most rigorous part was only just beginning.
No, God!
Now you're probably wondering, these are just the credits. What's so daunting about that? And the answer, my innocent friend, is the fact that there's no way to skip these credits. Usually this wouldn't be much of a problem, but when I'm able to take a whole ass shower before these credits are even close to finishing, that's when it becomes a bit of a problem. Either way, after barely surviving this credit scene, thanks to a cryogenic chamber, we're able to free the final dragon required to 100% the game. With 100% achieved, we're granted access to Nasty's loot, which is a rather tame level in which we hover around the area collecting as many gems as we can. Upon clearing out his secret stash, we aura farmed the shit out of this post-credit scene, only to learn that we hadn't quite got rid of Nasty Nork after all. Thus ends the first game in the trilogy. And if you were to ask me if the Spyro games were hard, I'd hit you with a definitive no. But considering this first game plastered my ass a whopping 37 times, I may have underestimated it a bit, something that I'm sure will carry on over into the second game. The second game starts where the first game ended. Although it seems following Nork's defeat, the Dragon World had been polluted by the constant fall of his discharge fluids. Not only did it cause our wings to stick to our ass, making flying extremely difficult, it somehow smelt worse than a gymnasium covered in baby diapers. Unfortunately, there was only one portal available, and to our knowledge, we had no idea where it led to. Even so, anything would be better than being constantly covered in Nork's discharge, so off we went. Elsewhere, a group of basic ass animals had been tampering with a set of balls, and after a quick fondle, the professor here had warmed them up just enough to draw our attention. Despite being the ones to summon us, it seems the group wasn't too impressed with us, proving once again that size does in fact matter. Before we're able to annihilate this pussy with our words, we're interrupted by a meteor similar to the one which wiped out the dinosaurs. Thankfully, it seems we'd misjudged the size of this attack, as it was just a measly fireball from Ripto, the main antagonist of this game. Unfortunately for him, the mere sight of us reminded him of his ex-wife, who divorced his sorry ass after she'd caught him hooking up with his two henchmen. Stunned by this revelation, Ripto uses this chance to get rid of us once and for all. Luckily for us though, his attacks take about 3 business days to fire off, giving our fairy friend here just enough time to intervene and take the scepter for herself. The developers, realizing that this would make for the shortest game in existence, made sure these 3 dumbasses found a way of getting the scepter back. Watching them walk off, there was no doubt in my mind they'd be some of the easiest bosses in the entire franchise. For now though, we're told by our future love interest to meet her in the summer forest for our first date. And as tempting as this offer was, that date would have to wait as there were far more important matters to attend to, like siphoning the very souls of our enemies and using them to power gates with hidden power-ups behind them. It appears as though news travels fast, as stories regarding Nork's defeat at our hands had already made their way to the locals of this world. As a result, the local workers upon seeing us couldn't help but run in fear as we singed their ass hairs from behind. This sense of superiority had well and truly gotten to our heads. Not only did the local population fear us, but our powers allowed us to do practically anything, except climb ladders. As a wise man once told me though, you're going to face challenges and roadblocks throughout your journey in life, and while it may seem impossible at the time, it's important to know that no matter how much effort you put in, those challenges are always going to kick your ass.
This is great banter.
With the worst advice ever embedded into your poor minds, we continued to work our way through Glimmer before being introduced to Mr. Moneybags here. I'm sure the good majority of players upon seeing Mr. Moneybags instantly characterized him as some kind of scamming scumbag. But I'm here to tell you that you're absolutely right. Throughout the game, this foreskin smeller demands we pay for almost everything, whether it's constructing bridges or opening entrances to specific levels. Nothing's off limits for this scumbag. Honestly, we're lucky he doesn't charge us for basic movement abilities.
Am I a joke to you?
With daylight robbery to look forward to, we work our way through the rest of Glimmer before coming across our first side quest. Side quests can be completed to earn an orb, special items that we'll need to collect if we're to have any hopes of 100%ing this game. Speaking of which, let's run through the requirements, shall we? To 100% this game, we'll need to collect 10,000 gems, obtain all 14 talismans, and gather all 40 orbs. The first side quest assumes the player has an IQ below 50, as we're simply tasked with lighting all 6 lamps using the newly unlocked Superfly power-up. From here, we did some slight backtracking using the Superfly power to reach platforms we couldn't reach before. Unfortunately, that's all we can do in Glimmer at this stage, as we still have no idea how to climb ladders. Disgraced, we dive through this portal which takes us to the summer forest, but before we're even able to process things, something magical happened. Wait, that was the whole loading screen? No way. Upon arriving in the summer forest, we once again meet up with Elora, whose toes instantly bait out the fact that Spyro has a foot fetish. Thankfully, it seems this wasn't an ick of Elora's, as she calmly explains the need for Avalar's talismans. Apparently, they're the key to defeating Ripto, and the only way to obtain them is to blackmail the inhabitants of each world into giving up their talismans. If there was one positive to come from being covered in Nork's discharge for months on end, it would be that Spyro was no longer scared of water and could freely paddle around in it. Unfortunately, we didn't know how to dive just yet, although for a small price of 500 gems, that could change. With the realization that we're poor as shit now seared into our frontal cortex, it wouldn't take long for yet another realization to hit. Wait, hover? Wait, you can fucking hover? Since when? With our minds blown to shit, we're awarded another orb by Hunter before entering the Idle Springs. As one of the opening stages in the first world, it shouldn't come as a surprise that this level is fairly straightforward. The enemies can't stand up to our charge attacks, and the side quests ultimately equate to us ruining the careers of these belly dancing hopefuls. Having threatened to lay waste to the rest of these dancers, the foremen had no choice but to hand over their talisman, marking the first of 14 we'd need to collect. Now, despite doing everything in our power to traumatize the local population, we still couldn't achieve 100% as we still hadn't learned how to dive underwater. The good news is we'd collected enough gems to afford this absolute ripoff of a deal. Even so, we looked at it as an investment, and despite its hefty price, it apparently came with the ability to breathe underwater indefinitely. Granted, Spyro controls like a constipated rat while underwater, but I mean, what did you expect from a first-time swimmer? Using our new ability, we ventured forth deeper into the summer forest, where we once again met up with Alora. She lets us know that certain portals will only activate should we have enough orbs to do so, and thankfully, it seems as though we had just enough this time around. It would seem the developers of this game also enjoyed taking a taser to the sack, as that's how I feel every time I enter a Speedway stage. You'd think with all the practice I'd gotten in the previous game, that these stages would be a complete cakewalk. Oh my god, how am I still so... I was still complete dog shit. The frustrating part, however, was the fact that the route itself was evident, yet it was my dogshit execution that was letting me down each and every time. The biggest roadblock were ironically these cars that circled the track in this level. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to flame them without being slapped out of the air constantly. I must have spent close to 10 minutes getting my cheeks thoroughly clapped before I realized you had to ram through them using our own charge attacks. As if things couldn't get any worse, we exit the stage just to meet with this money-hungry asshole once again. To no one's surprise, he requests even more gems to lower this wall, revealing yet another portal behind it. Out of spite, I chose not to enter that level and instead venture forth into Hurricos, the taser capital of Avalar. Yet despite the copious amounts of electricity, the main challenge once again came down to the platforming. That said, the rest of the stage wasn't too bad, although annoyingly, we didn't have the abilities required to 100% this level just yet. Speaking of 100%ing old stages, we could now dive to the bottom of the lake in Idle Springs, where we followed an underground tunnel to a puzzle which required the activation of all 3 of my brain cells. The side quests to follow weren't nearly as bad, as they merely saw us feeding fish to a statue and exposing our minuscule memory to remember a sequence of buttons. Completing all of this awards us with our final orb, signifying our first 100%ed level. Following this, we entered into Colossus, the home of terrible singing. It's also in this very world where we're forced to skate around on slippery ice. To make matters worse, 2 of the stage's orbs are locked behind an ice hockey minigame. In what can only be described as a miracle, however, these dumbasses had somehow found someone even worse on the ice than yours truly, and despite smashing the puck into the same corner time and time again, this buffoon never learned. In terms of the talisman we had to collect, the residents had requested the extermination of a particular Yeti, but we had a better idea to secure that talisman. Threatened to flatten their entire village, with this Yeti being crushed being a sneak peek of the destruction to come. With fear once again coursing through the locals' veins, we secured yet another talisman as we made our way towards the calming sunny beach, which ironically enough opens up with a cutscene depicting workplace violence. In the hopes of shielding their kids' eyes, the old sage tortoise here asks that we escort these young uns to safety, while avoiding all these sea ducks trying to be relatable with their blow-up rings. Little did the prince know that we were the real threat, and after taking their kids hostage, their advisor had no choice but to fork over his people's talisman. As impressive as our blackmailing skills had become, we had to come to terms with the fact that we still couldn't climb a fucking ladder. Deflated, I thought it best that we cool our heads in some water, and lo and behold, the very next stage seemed to be the perfect place to do so. If there's one thing Aquaria Towers does well, it's highlighting just how arse the swimming mechanics are in these games. Getting eaten by robotic sharks is one thing, but who thought it was a good idea to stick the camera right up Spyro's arse as we're trying to make last minute turns to pass through all these circles? Honestly, you might as well be blind while playing through this level, as the camera never knows what the fuck it's doing. Either way, with 6 talismans collected, we're now able to pass through this mysterious door, which opens up to reveal a hole. Falling down it starts a cutscene where we learn how Ripto came into power.
Crash! Go back and pack my
my bags. We're moving in. Say hello to your new king.
Wait, that's it? Eventually, we reached the bottom of this hole. Yes, we were falling during that entire flashback. And waiting for us down here is Crush, the first main boss of the game. To no one's surprise, Crush lives up to his name, although his attack patterns are quite limited. The idea here is to keep flaming his beer gut, ultimately causing him to throw a tantrum, which comes with its own headache. After repeating this process a few more times, Crush had been crushed.
Ooh, you suck.
Terrified, Ripto tucked his tail between his cheeks and ran off to the Autumn Plains, where he quickly took over leadership from Mr. Moneybags. Determined to stop his reign once and for all, we make our way over to the Autumn Plains, where we immediately get ripped off by the same idiot that had somehow speedran his hospital visit after that fall. Having paid to win, we're able to travel back to the old areas like Glimmer, where we're now able to flex our godly ability to climb ladders. Importantly, this means we're able to collect gems that we weren't able to reach the first time around, as well as complete some sketchy side quests that see us annihilating the remaining turtle population. With animal cruelty experience added to our resume, we grabbed the last few gems and orbs in Summer Forest before making our way back to the Autumn Plains. The first level we had a crack at here was the Skelos Badlands, which just so happens to be one of the first levels to introduce these little molten rocks, which we can gobble up and fire out as ammunition. As you can imagine, this makes taking out a lot of the enemies in the stage a complete cakewalk. If it wasn't for these side quests, this level would be rather easy, but instead we need to protect these cavemen from these hatching dinosaurs that somehow hatch fully grown. The eggs don't hatch in order, making it difficult to track when and where the dinosaurs are hatching. The order isn't random thankfully, but it did mean we had to sacrifice one of the cavemen to learn it. Alongside this, we also found ourselves collecting a bunch of bones, some of which we literally died for. And to say the reward was underwhelming would be an understatement. Disappointed, we travelled over to Breeze Harbour, which as its name would suggest, was a complete breeze. Yeah, so like I was saying, this level was quite easy. Okay, outside of this cancerous trolley minigame, the rest of the level was quite tame. What wasn't tame were these birds who were deep-throating rockets before shooting them back out at us. If that wasn't strange enough, the same birds who were dropping their loads into said mouse also had it out for us as they tried the exact same shit on us. Thankfully, there are multiple cannons situated throughout the level, which when paired with my god tier aim, meant absolute annihilation for our enemies. Ironically enough though, the hardest part of this entire level is during these side quests as we're tasked with herding back these funky looking elephants. Where it gets hard though is when we've got to launch them across the Grand Canyon, a feat so unbelievably hard that the game will essentially allow you to glitch your way to victory. Following this, we blow the shit out of the Corporal's house, thus earning ourselves another talisman. Having returned to the Autumn Plains, we make our way back down to the Great Wall of Ladders, and after spending a lifetime climbing them, we enter Scorch, where we come across the latest brain rot victim.
My brother Handel and I have been sent here to blow at this castle.
Greta here asks us to find a way to open the doors that block her route to her brother. The only problem is that these doors were guarded by no less than 38 million guards. Even after blitzing our way through them and rescuing Handel, our job isn't quite done as we need to lure this Aladdin wannabe back to Handel. This is easier said than done as we're not allowed to take even a single hit from this motherfucker. With our game plan having to shift gears, we eventually bait this idiot into giving us the final flag, thus earning us the final orb for this stage. Following this, we took a quick dip in the local spa, witnessed someone consume the most calorific apple known to man, and lost our minds trying to protect the dumbest alchemist to ever exist. In some bizarre twist of fate, it seems as though Hunter had stepped into the dogshit equivalent of cement. He tells us that we'd need to get help from the alchemist, who's quite literally a few steps to the left of this cave. Tell me then, why does this fuckwit go dancing in between these hulking earth shapers? If that wasn't bad enough, he doesn't even take the optimal route. He'll straight up do a fucking pump fake just to confuse us, only to end up railed himself. Honestly, this shit will go down as an unsolved mystery, I swear. Crash out aside, we do eventually escort him to Hunter. And surprise surprise, we can't even complete his side quests as we haven't unlocked the head bash ability yet. Annoyed, we hand in another set of talismans which once again opens a gate leading to a hole. This time however, there's no flashback to be seen as we look to interrupt Ripto and Gulp's dinner session. Infuriated, Gulp wastes no time eviscerating us from existence. Wait, what? To my shock horror, Gulp here is by far the toughest boss we've faced so far. Not only does he have far more health than Crush ever did, his attacks are far more lethal as he's able to predict our movements. In this sense, we have to be extremely careful with our movements as simply sprinting around the arena will likely result in a quick death. In the end, we're forced into playing hopscotch as we zigzag our way through his lightning attacks in the hopes of landing a single hit on his massive health bar. He did plaster us a good few times, but we did finally manage to defeat him, leaving Ripto on his lonesome. As thanks for defeating Gulp, we're given roughly 5 seconds of relaxation time before our dragon senses kick in and we follow Elora over to the Winter Tundra. This seemed to be the right move as we're able to buy the head bash ability for a whopping 1000 gems. Having replaced our head with a vibranium one, we head back to the Autumn Plains where we meet up with Hunter once again to deal with these Earth Shapers. What Moneybags had conveniently left out of this new head replacement deal, however, was the fact that we'd be hearing voices from people that didn't exist.
Oh, hi, Dragon Boy. You're probably expecting me to say, you're my hero.
With fears of schizophrenia running through our head, we continued to complete past side quests which saw us revisiting Shady Oasis to slam down on some rock-hard hippos. While we were back in Autumn Plains, I decided to see if that date opportunity with Elora was still on. Unfortunately though, all she had to offer was another secret level, and just so happened to be one of the worst ones yet. It doesn't matter how many of these Speedway levels I complete, the developers had somehow found a way to make each of them incredibly annoying to 100%. With that said, it wasn't the base objective that proved the most difficult. Instead, it was Hunter's side quest which saw us following him around in order to catch the treasure dropped by these thieves. This wouldn't have been that big of a problem if the camera wasn't having an aneurysm the entire time. Even so, we managed to steal back all the treasure before coming across another roadblock. Where the fuck are these orbs? Couldn't for the life of me find the last 2 orbs in the autumn fields. That's when I learned that they were hidden behind some incredibly discreet walls. With our mind blown for the 14th time with this video, we travelled back to the Winter Tundra where we entered Metropolis. During our journey, we've come across our fair share of peculiar enemies, none of which beat the ones present here. I mean, there's literal cows with laser guns and pigs with rockets strapped to their backs that somehow do fuck all damage even if they do manage to hit you. Strange as this was, the level only got harder as we soon found ourselves on a skate rink facing off against an ox that shot bombs out of its mouth. Dodging these bombs while also attempting to hit them back at this ox was already hard enough on its own. But the developers placed our asses on ice, which is unnecessarily frustrating. I should mention that this is the only section in the entire level that includes said ice, meaning there's really no reason why it should even be here. I mean, how the fuck did the ox even get to that platform behind the ice in the first place? Like, it's elevated and like, what the fuck? With anger coursing through my veins, I took to the skies, which may go down as one of the most brain-dead decisions yet as we once again dabbed up the respawn screen. You know what they say in Copeville though, practice makes perfect, and after perfectly lighting our way through the hallways here, we blast the shit out of this final chest, 100%ing yet another level. Following this, we moved our way over to Mystic March, where we won out against literal mammoths, but couldn't help getting our asses clapped by these monkeys. By this point, we'd collected all the talismans required, and instead we'd just get orbs at the end of each level. The rest of our time in this level was spent chasing down a number of Sly Cooper's proteges, and fair play to him, he'd trained them well. The last few levels to follow weren't too bad. Cloud Temples tested our timing as we had to freeze this little fiery gremlin in order to ring the bells of awakening.
Okay, we are cooked.
While Robotic Farms taught me a valuable lesson, a lesson that isn't directly taught to the player despite being an absolute game changer. Wait, you can point to treasure? Wait, no. I won't believe it until I see it. Fuck that. That can't be real.
2 seconds later.
Holy fucking shit, it's actually real. What? Unfortunately, I learned of this godly power at the worst possible time, as the only stage I had left to complete was a goddamn Speedway level. This went how you'd expect, with us failing to complete all objectives on our first 2 attempts. That said, once I realized that the optimal route saw us cutting off the ramp trail early and start bulldozing these carts, it became incredibly easy to complete. With every orb collected, all that remained was to deal with Ripto, who was currently in his worst form ever. I mean, he couldn't even hit a group of sheep with his attacks. How's he expecting to hit us? Honestly, Ripto was far tougher than I expected, mainly due to the fact that he has multiple phases. His first phase is rather easy, but it's the second and third phase which can become somewhat tricky, as he's stolen Gulp's ability to predict our movement and plan his shots accordingly. Depending on when he does so, this can oftentimes lead to us being cut off from collecting the orbs dropped by Tiger. Worse yet, his third phase has him shooting out these green ball attacks that somehow home in on you, and considering we learnt how to fly from penguins, these weren't the easiest attacks to dodge. That said, on my second attempt, attempt, I was able to get right up his arse and light him up early, making for a rather simple win in the end. Having restored peace to the world of Avalar, it seems as though Elora was finally willing to give us a chance. Unluckily for her, our newfound fame meant we couldn't sit idly by, and what better way is there to capitalize on being the hero of Avalar than to create our very own website? Now, before you guys start stressing about the complexities of building a whole website, what if I told you that there was a software that didn't just make this whole process simple and fast, but also helped you build your website for free as well? That's essentially what Odoo is, an all-in-one business management solution that provides its users with over 70 simple and efficient applications to help manage and alleviate the stress that comes from managing a business. In terms of its website builder, it couldn't be easier to set up, with the website configurer guiding you through it all based on your interests, goals, color preferences, logos, and core themes. The dreamlike service doesn't end there though, as you're able to drag and drop building blocks in a way that makes designing your perfect page a complete breeze. Whether it's text, colors, or images, Odoo lets you customize it all with dynamic and enchanting effects. I know this all sounds too good to be true, but it gets even better. See, with Odoo, your first app is completely free with unlimited hosting and support, and with the website app, you also get a 1-year free domain name. With the release of Odoo 19 adding even more features like all new customizable building blocks, there's no better time to build an immaculate website for yourself or your business. Click the link in the description to start building your next website for free. Thanks again to Odoo for sponsoring this video. With our new website generating us millions in revenue every day, we could afford to take things easy as we decided to take that long-awaited vacation. Because we'd 100%ed the game, this meant we could enter Dragon Shores, the world's shittiest theme park. Having barely enough rides to satiate our caterpillar was one thing, but then to make us wait upwards of 17 years to get on them, only for us to have to restart the whole game, was downright diabolical. With that said, it didn't take long to farm up the 10 tokens needed to enter the theatre room, whose only purpose was to replay the cutscenes we'd already seen. Disappointment aside, that brings us to the end of Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and if there's one thing we have in common with Ripto, is that we too raged quite a bit, 33 times to be exact, meaning at least in my case, I found this game a tad bit easier than its predecessor. This leaves us with one last game to discuss, and honestly speaking, the title of Hardest is still very much up for grabs. It seems as though we weren't the only ones on vacation, as we witness the power a nuclear sleep bomb has on the land of dragons. Because the average IQ of a dragon matches that of a toasted cheese sandwich, none of them thought to hide their precious eggs away from burrowing thieves. They're lucky this thief wasn't too smart herself, as she triggered our organic alarm clock while trying to escape.
Wait a minute!
Surrounded, she had no choice but to... Wait, she actually got away. Once again, the dragon eggs had been stolen, although we soon find out that these thieves are working for King K. Rool's wife.
What the hell is even that?
Now, as much as we'd like to mount a full frontal assault on these thieves, the fact was that most of the dragons were morbidly obese and therefore couldn't fit through the holes leading to the next world. With the dragon's credibility at an all-time low, it was once again up to us to restore it back to its former glory, and the only way to do that was to collect all 50 million dragon eggs. Diving through the hole takes us to the Sunrise Spring world, where I immediately noticed that the game gives you hints as to where the next egg is. With that said, our arch nemesis here does in fact tell us that we'll be hard pressed to find even a single egg, as they're hidden in some of the most secluded areas known to man.
And I've hidden them in places you'll never find in 1,000 years.
Stop the cap.
Continuing on, we once again run into Mr. Moneybags, who seems to have expanded his expertise to now include animal trafficking. Unfortunately, we're far too poor at this stage to save this poor kangaroo, meaning we had no choice but to venture forth into Sunny Villa. Now, if there was any doubt that this level would not be a complete cakewalk, then rest assured, it was. The enemies, if you can even call them that, either run themselves into walls or shit their pants in fear upon seeing us. Bianca's god tier hiding spots continued to be questioned as we made our way through the villa.
And I've hidden them in places you'll never find in 1,000 years.
Ultimately ending in us being cockblocked by a doorway and a signpost which stated we had to claim the kangaroo as our slave before being allowed through it. Displeased, we looked to take our mind off things and picked up skateboarding of all things. The only problem was the only instructor available was Hunter, and as you can imagine, he was one of the worst teachers imaginable. We are lucky that there wasn't a time limit attached to this side quest, otherwise there's no telling how many attempts it would take. Ah, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Having spoken far too soon, we're given the exact same challenge, this time with a time limit attached. If that didn't add enough pressure, we're also not allowed to crash a single time, which given our instructor, wasn't going to happen. After eating shit for a second time, in the exact same place might I add, I finally leaned forward in my chair and learned how to not faceplant on each half-pipe jump. Despite having mastered the art of skateboarding, we still couldn't 100% this level, as there was a particular kangaroo waiting to be rescued. The good news is we'd managed to build up enough wealth to buy her ourselves, but in a shock twist, paying this fee didn't exactly give us ownership rights. Rather, it turned us into her, with the only way of returning to our original body being to help her liberate her home world. Sheila's Alp is the first home realm we'll be tackling, and as you'll come to see, they're designed to capitalize on the side character's unique abilities. In this case, most of the collectibles are hidden in caverns that can only be reached using our record-breaking high jump. With legs this strong, there was nothing that could stand in our way as we made sure the rest of our enemies lost all hope of reproducing. With Sheila's homeworld saved, we could now head back to Sunny Villa, where we play out this section as her. See, our goal was to rescue Rapunzel, although upon reaching her, it didn't seem like there was much to rescue.
What? Marco sent you here. I've got a restraining order against you.
Plot twists aside, she hands over the last egg of this level, marking our first 100% of the playthrough. Following this, we spent some time relearning how to glide and hover with Hunter, who was so impressed with our abilities that he decided to hand over an egg that he'd hidden, somewhere. Our journey saw us visiting the Cloud Spires next, where the enemies were too busy yawning to notice their friends getting rearranged in front of them. As easy as the stage was as a whole, it doesn't really matter when it's the player who's complete wanged. Looking to recover from that pathetic display, we headed onto the Molten Crater, a stage that not only contains some of the sketchiest jumps yet, but also this rat bastard. Having had our wallets emptied for the 17th time, we make sure to get our money's worth as we look to put Sonic out of business, all while chasing down the FBI's most wanted criminal. Unfortunately, we're once again cock-blocked by a future sidekick that we haven't quite unlocked just yet. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that image looked like a penguin, and where better to find said penguin than an underwater stage? Wait, fuck. And before anyone asks if the swimming mechanics had improved, they most definitely had not. In a weird attempt at a gotcha, however, the developers made sure to make the hardest section of this entire level a boss fight that takes place entirely above the water. The camera constantly trying to center itself was already aids enough, but the real challenge came in understanding how to drive this fucking boat in the first place. Even after I pulled my head out of my ass and understood it, the fight itself was rather tough, as this mechanical shark hardly gives you any breathing room. 80% of the time he's constantly on your ass, and even when he does get baited by these crates, we've only got a short time frame to pulverize him with our missiles. Despite being a random mini-boss in a random level, it was undoubtedly one of the toughest fights we've come across so far. What I hadn't realized while completing these levels was that one member of those civilizations had essentially run away from home, hoping to make a new life for themselves. Unfortunately for them, we were the main character, meaning we were the first in line when it came to balloon rides. During our flight, we get a sneak peek of Bianca's ability to transform an enemy into an even larger one. As I say in the bedroom though, size doesn't always matter, and nothing proved this more than the resulting boss fight against this creature. The fight itself is extremely straightforward, as all we need to do is ram him into the lava surrounding the arena. In terms of attacks, we might as well have a larger arsenal than this dumbass, as he spends an ungodly amount of time rolling around the arena just to reposition himself in front of the lava once again. I will admit, this little fire circle he produces did catch me off guard, but outside of that, we had no problems boiling this fat-ass toad. With that little detour out of the way, we finally touch down in Midday Gardens, where we're interrupted by Bianca, who delivers one of the least threatening monologues ever.
I suggest you grab your cat friend and whatever eggs you found and hightail it back home while you still can.
Oh, scary. Shiver my timbers. Shut up, man.
Choosing to ignore her, we dash over to the Enchanted Towers, which at first seemed like one of the worst stages ever concocted. The main reason being these flying little devil things, which have to be defeated as they drop gems required to 100%. The problem is with our current abilities, the only way to deal with them is using these little green molten balls, which with my aim is like trying to hit a grape with a paper plane from 100 meters out.
What are you aiming at?
The worst part though is some of these arseholes are in locations that are extremely hard to reach, especially with our less than ideal aim. At a certain point, I just gave up trying to kill all these flying munchkins and instead looked to de-stress with the help of this adorable wolf. In saying that, there was one thing holding me back, and it's not what you'd expect. I was so distracted by this music in fact that I somehow managed to glitch the hell out of our wolf friend. Disappointed, we moved on to find another feline friend, that being Hunter, who thought he had it in him to beat us in a skateboarding competition. He completely bodied us. It was only after I suffered that catastrophic defeat that I realized I'd have to pull out more than just some shitty half-pipe spin moves if I was going to win this face-off. The moment I did so, we obliterated Hunter's score, reminding him that he was indeed a bum and only ever worthy of being a side character.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't.
With our ego inflated beyond belief, we continued to explore the Midday Gardens before coming across our money-hungry friend once again. To our surprise, he was holding a penguin hostage, the same penguin which had appeared on multiple wanted posters across the world. Desperate to turn him in, we insisted to Mr. Moneybags that we'd take him off his hands, and despite it costing us a whole ass lung, it was worth it in the end as we could now play as Sergeant Bird, the strongest side character in the entire game. Not only can Sergeant Bird fly indefinitely, he's got an unlimited supply of homing missiles that can annihilate a whole room of enemies in record time. His powers make clearing out his homeworld a complete breeze, but our domination doesn't stop there, as we're able to return to the enchanted towers where we make sure these flying bastards are well and truly extinct. Regrettably, we're also able to reach all of these bone-hungry dinosaurs, and after taking them all out, we can once again revive this dancing skeleton.
Stop it. Get some help.
While here, we got a distress call from another stage, and upon arriving, it was very clear why. Icy Peak had all the makings of a cancerous level. I mean, we've literally got to deal with goddamn rats riding TNT boxes towards us, all while we flail around on some slippery ice. That said, it did mean we could load off some of the effort by doing things like this. Strangely, the toughest part of this whole level had nothing to do with the slippery physics and more so to do with my horrendous aim. Despite this, we still had more than enough aura to pull the world champion of ice skating as we protected her from a horde of stalkers. I gotta say, the camera was doing everything in its power to cockblock us here. I mean, how in the fuck are you even supposed to see most of these rhinos? Either way, we forced her to fork over her egg before collecting the rest of the gems in the level. We then made our way over to Bamboo Terrace, where I decided to remind you guys just how disastrous my platforming abilities are. And in case you guys aren't convinced, I did it again. Oh my, there's no way this has just fucking happened. If that wasn't bad enough, during the very next side quest, I went on to incinerate the very first panda we were ordered to protect.
You're a donut! You're so stupid!
It got to the point where even the leader here just had to give up hope on us as we once again plastered one of his pandas only for him to hand over the egg anyway. Our suffering didn't end here though, as following this mishap we're forced into confronting our worst nightmare. Speedway stages in this game work a bit differently than its predecessors. Rather than throwing the player immediately into a time attack, we're given the choice between the time attack and a new mode which sees us racing against whatever tryhards are present. Even the time attacks work a bit differently though, as we're now given a static time limit, in which none of the obstacles add to it. With that said, Spark here makes things significantly easier, as he will quite literally drop the easiest route to clearing the mission. With that in mind, you'd have to be astronomically shit to fail.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay.
Yeah, I got that first time. The races on the other hand definitely put up more of a fight, and given how early into the game this particular race is, I couldn't help but feel it was rather unforgiving. See, the only chance we have at winning this race within the 3-lap limit is to hit the larger majority of these speed boosts. The only problem with that is should you miss even a single green ring, you instantly fail, making any detour off the beaten path, no matter how slight, extremely risky. With that said, we did manage to secure first place on our third attempt, which is honestly pretty embarrassing. With our confidence fist bumping rotten shit at the bottom of the barrel, we desperately needed a chill level, and to everyone's surprise, I'm sure, Spooky Swamps was just what we needed. The enemies were easy to take down, and despite the swamp water looking like a fast track ticket to the respawn screen, we had no problem sprinting our way through it. By my standards, this level was going by quite smoothly, but as the old saying goes, all good things must come to an end. And come to an end they did, as I watched in disbelief as these fucking idiots ran into the same toadstools time and time again. Granted, we're the ones in charge of keeping these toadstools down, but still, these motherfuckers will avoid 3 toadstools in a row before doing a quick cut inside, leaving us with no time to react. For such a simple side quest, it proved to be one of the most infuriating, as I failed more times than I'd like to admit. The supposed boss, and I use that term loosely on the other hand, was a complete snooze fest, which is ironic, considering the boss himself looks like he'd just woken up from a century-long slumber. Looking to make amends for the weak catalogue of bosses, the Sorceress decided to take things into her own hands, crafting one of the dopiest looking enemies we'd seen so far. Despite looking a bit dodgy, Spike here did in fact mean business, so much so that we required the help of Sergeant Bird to defeat him. The idea here is simple enough. Dodge his attacks and wait for Sergeant Bird to drop some elemental balls, which we can use to damage Spike. In theory, this should have been a whitewash in our favour, but it seems as though Sergeant Bird had had quite a few drinks before rocking up to the arena, as he constantly dropped these balls right under Spike's cheeks. Even so, the fact that Spike's attacks were all incredibly easy to dodge made this fight a rather easy one. With another abomination dealt with, we arrive in Evening Lake, where we're once again warned by Bianca to pack our bags and leave. Unfortunately for her, the music playing in the background was far too engaging to hear anything she was saying. Brushing her aside, our first port of call saw us freeing our Yeti friend, who wasted no time in giving Moneybags a piece of his club. Now considering Bentley's build and strengths, his abilities were always going to be rather straightforward. This further translated into his homeworld stage, which essentially saw us running amok as we bashed our way through countless enemies. We then repeated this same procedure in Bamboo Terrace, while also backtracking to the Molten Crater, where we took command of Sergeant in an attempt to help reattach these statues' heads to their bodies. With our community service hours consummated, we returned to Evening Lake, where we looked to take on the Frozen Altars, a level that not only gave us a completely new fire breath attack, but also the ability to control Inferno Towers as we melted our enemies away. Little did I know that this icy breath attack wasn't strong enough to completely defeat enemies, and was instead useful when it came to creating platforms that we could then use to reach higher areas. For as many benefits as we got during the base level, we got no help whatsoever when it came to this instanced side quest. For whatever reason, we've been thrown into a boxing ring against the current heavyweight champion, who wasted no time testing our arms multiple times. Switching between different boxing styles all while trying to protect his blocks was a lost cause, and after getting my ass handed to me a good few times, I just stuck to what I know best, throwing the exact same punch the entire fight until it worked out. With our death count nearing our IQ, we looked to take a quick break in Asia, where we came across never-ending rhinos who did nothing but aura farm. I later found out that these rhinos weren't supposed to infinitely respawn. I swear this game's just trying everything in its power to stop us from obtaining 100%. And considering we spent the next 15 minutes chasing after some twin dragon heads, it was looking like that'd be the case. I need to know what the developers were on when they decided it'd be a good idea for this dragon boss to regenerate its heads over time. It's not even a hard boss fight, it's just a prolonged one because of this very mechanic. While we were busy fighting off animated dragons, Hunter was too busy being captured. If there's one thing Hunter's good at though, it's having absolutely no rears.
If you let me go.
I'm sorry. I can't.
With what I can only imagine is supposed to be our sidekick captured, it looked like it was up to us to obtain the last of the dragon eggs alone. Our next objective saw us breezing through Honey Speedway, which was one of the easiest speedway stages we'd tackled so far. Charmed Ridge on the other hand wasn't so effortless, as most of the enemies came equipped with their own Viagra wizards. Even so, we pushed on, as we'd heard rumours that the kingdom's princess had been captured. You can only imagine the disappointment on my face when I realised that she was completely whipped by this feline loser. If being mogged by a CD looking cat wasn't bad enough, we soon learned that our good friend Sergeant Byrne also has a date lined up.
Just a friend, you understand. Strictly platonic relationship.
We, on the other hand, can't even get a few backshots off without being humbled. Lady Luck was not on our side during this stage, as we couldn't even complete the most simple of glides. Having been tested far too many times here, we decided to get the hell out of here, with our next destination being the Midnight Mountain. As is common by this point, we're stopped by yet another abomination created by the Sorceress, and this one might be the worst one yet. Despite having a wide range of attacks, its most infuriating ability is making sure the camera stays locked onto its movements the entire time. This essentially blindsides us, meaning we can't even see what's coming at us from behind. And as sus as that sounds, it makes for an extremely infuriating boss fight. Bro, what the fuck? I can't even see what's going on. Oh, sick, I'm dead. What? With our anal sphincter ruptured, I made sure to take things slower on our second attempt, only to get jump scared by an old foe of ours. Thankfully, this idiot doesn't realize he can attack while old Spike here is summoned, and after a quick 180 blast, he was down for the count. With the world ender defeated, it seems as though things were looking up. Bianca had come around after realizing the Sorceress had been stealing her perfume, while we managed to free another future sidekick in the form of Agent 9. Agent 9's homeworld might be the easiest one yet, as he literally comes equipped with a ray gun and home-crafted grenades that he can launch across galaxies. It doesn't matter if it's third person or first person, every stage that involves him is a complete joke. What isn't so much of a joke is getting blasted to shit by a seahorse with a pistol. Dino Mines in general might be one of the hardest levels in the entire trilogy, or at least it seemed that way. See, during the railgun shooter side quests, there's a section where no matter what I did, I couldn't hit a particular enemy. Even though my crosshairs were humping the right side of the screen, for whatever reason, our shots didn't go anywhere near him. It was only after I replaced my smashed up monitor that I learned that this was a common glitch with ultra widescreen monitors, and the only feasible way to solve it was to play in windowed mode. Honestly, what a load of fucking horse shit. The pain didn't stop there though, as I found myself plastered by, I couldn't even tell you at this point. I swear the game was just trying to rage bait me. At this point in our journey, it felt like we'd been dragging our sacks over glass, and looking up at our future endeavors, it was only going to get worse. Even Hunter's side quest in the Speedway was a hassle to get through, as the closer you got to the saucer, the tougher it was to predict and react to its sharp turns. Thankfully, things started to cool down a bit, not temperature wise, but difficulty wise, as we stepped into desert ruins. Now, I wouldn't call this level extremely easy or anything, as it does require some rather decent timing, especially when it comes to the fire-spitting enemies and platforms that sink the longer you stay on them. The good news, however, is that falling into this murky goo doesn't result in an instant death, giving us enough leeway to make our way through it without any catastrophes. Following this, we're not only fucked by an invisible wall, but we're the prime victims of yet another ultra widescreen glitch. Can I fucking move please? Hello? The goal here is to drive our little tank around and blast the shit out of the others. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, it would be if we could fucking move. For the life of me, I couldn't understand why my tank would randomly superglue itself to the ground beneath it, and it was only after some research where I learned that our tank would only move if our FPS was lower than 144. Why this is the case, I could not tell you. With our tank now back in our control, we wasted no time battering the rest of these peasants before returning to the lost fleet, where we were once again humbled for our skateboarding skills. Fuck. This race in particular was extremely frustrating, as we needed to sneak in tricks throughout the entire race to build up our speed boost meter. Not only that, but to earn both eggs, we needed to not only win the race, but defeat all 10 crabs positioned around the track. A feat I wasn't able to manage on my first attempt, because I didn't know there was a fucking sneaky crab hiding up in this alcove. Having mastered the art of skateboarding for the 13th time, we spent the rest of our time collecting the final gems in the same level, thus earning us our final 100% on the base levels. With that said, we weren't quite done just yet. Sparks finally decided to be useful and participate in our quest for world domination. Egg collection. Spark's missions involve him flying around multiple rooms while defeating enemies and collecting keys, which open up locked gates. It essentially simulates a top-down dungeon crawler, just without any of the character progression, replayability, or progressive combat. In that sense, it's an extremely dumbed down iteration, and is therefore incredibly easy to complete. Having collected the last 4 eggs, all that remained was taking on the Sorceress herself. Now, this boss is interesting to say the least. It's pretty much just a dodging simulator, which is a good thing, considering most of her attacks are easy enough to avoid. The hard part, however, is controlling some of these goddamn vehicles, which is definitely concerning, considering they're our only means of damaging her. Even so, we did manage to take her down with relative ease, although it took far longer than I'd ever like to admit. Following her defeat, we once again returned to the Dragon Worlds, where we film our first podcast. Yeah, we've well and truly fallen off. As the game comes to an end, we witness the happy ever afters of all our friends, while roasting the shit out of Hunter only to do the exact same thing. Despite all that though, we still hadn't quite 100%ed the game just yet. See, we still needed to get revenge on Mr. Moneybags here for farming us of all of our gems, and what better way than to give him constant backshots as he tries to run away from us. We're also able to collect the final egg, with the final Sparks mission being unlocked following the Sorceress's defeat. Now, unlike the rest of Sparks missions, this one was incredibly easy. Like, pathetically easy. What? Did you think I was going to say it was hard? Alas, with 15,000 gems collected and 149 eggs stolen, we're now able to access the final locked tower, which takes us to a hidden world where the sorceress had stored all her drug money. Given the money on offer, we made sure to wring this place dry of its loot, whether that meant demolishing these idiots in a life or death race or blowing these UFO goats to shit. We were willing to do it all. After collecting 20,000 total gems, we're able to enter a mysterious tower, and look who decided to show back up. This final battle against the sorceress is even simpler than her previous fight, as it all amounts to a saucepan face-off, where we're both just flying around shooting energy balls at each other. That said, her movements make it laughably easy to land shots on her, resulting in a rather underwhelming final battle. The final cutscene shows us back in the dragon world with all the freshly hatched baby eggs, although what becomes painfully obvious is the fact that the studio had run out of its budget, as there's not a single line of dialogue here.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Thus concludes our adventures as Spyro in the Year of the Dragon, and more impressively, the entire Reignited trilogy. What isn't so impressive, however, is the fact that we got bodied 39 times. With that said, it's finally time to rank each of these games from easiest to hardest. And if I'm being honest, I had no idea which game was going to be the hardest considering it's been centuries since I last played them. With that said, both the original Spyro and Ripto's Rage fell short of Year of the Dragon, who came out on top as the hardest game in the Reignited trilogy. I will eventually get around to playing the Legend of Spyro trilogy, so that'll be interesting to see how they match up. Until then, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you to all the channel members, your support means a lot to me, and I'll be seeing you all in the next one.